Hello again. Now we have a nice little model of the set that we've been making. Um, Not the greatest set in the world, I suppose, but something that has all the components. There's a lot we can do to it to make it a real working set. But as a demonstration, I think it will serve well. So we have this model, and we need to think about publishing it out in its various documents that are going to be necessary for um, for our um, design packet. Now, one would think you could just do a top view, a front view, a right view of everything here, and off to the races. We'd have everything we need, right? But think of it as publishing the elements of the plan instead. So I'm going to sit back here in top plan view, and we're going to start building some sheet layers. And the first sheet layer is going to be, in fact, the ground plan. So up here in our navigation ribbon, or down here in our navigation window, but I'm going to use the navigation ribbon, we're currently in the masking layer right here, and that's in the design layers. We're now going to create a new sheet layer, but we're not going to just willy-nilly create the sheet layer and then add things to it. I think there's a more elegant way of proceeding. We're going to come over to the View menu here, pull down to create viewport, and click that. So now we get this dialog box that allows us to create a new sheet plan if one doesn't already exist. I happen to already have a plan view in sheet layer 1 on a template, so we'll just go ahead and use that. For some drawings, we'll want to create a drawing label because we can put multiple drawings on one sheet, and each one will have a number and a title. In this case, though, we're putting one drawing on. It is the plan. We're not going to need a drawing label for it. And we might want to put it in 1/4 inch scale, just the same way that it appears on our D-sized paper. We want to check in up here to make sure we're in top plan. And it will render it in wireframe as our default because we've been drawing in wireframe. It uses less of the memory, the random memory of the program in order to work in wireframe. But normally, we will use hidden line. We could use dashed hidden line in some cases. I'll talk about those later in another session. So we're going to use hidden line and click OK. I'm going to zoom out, and this is what that drawing looks like on the page. It is a viewport that has not been updated. You'd think, oh, why isn't it updated? Well, there's lots of information we can change about it over here. And once we click update, the candy cane around it will go away. We still do have this object selected, right? Now, we're going to need to, this is where we add the information to the ground plan. In order to add that information, we're going to need to go inside this particular viewport. Remember, I mentioned that there can be multiple drawings on a sheet, and each one will be annotated differently. So let's go ahead and double click on that viewport, and it asks if we want to edit the viewport. We want to edit annotations. I'll talk about annotation, cropping a viewport in a little bit. So we'll click OK, and now we're inside the viewport. A couple of things I want to do with my ground plan. Let's say the first thing I want to do is create a center line, right? Those origin lines are awfully important. And so I'm going to want to, from the midpoint, snap a line up. So I'm going to come over here to my tools, and I'm going to grab the line tool. Before I do so, I want to change the color of that. I like to use a green center line. I like it to be faint and light when it's printed. And I want it back to the select tool because now every line I make will be green until I tell it otherwise. There's my center line. I'm going to click, drag, click. Back to my select tool. I'm going to pull that downstage a little bit, and I'm going to select a different line type. I'm going to use a dashed line here. We're also going to make this 0.18 in width. All of our lines in this work are going to want to be 0.18. That's that lighter line in the USITT standards. And we're going to make this a long dash short dash line, line type 9 here. Long dash short dash is the USITT standard, it's the standard for the center line. So we can zoom in and see that it's got a long dash, short dash. I'm going to want to label that as a center line, so I'm going to go to my text tool, and you'll see we're still holding on to the green, and I'm going to type the letter C, and it's going to be in all caps. Oops. Can't find my buttons. Caps lock. I'm going to type a letter C, and then I'm going to click elsewhere, and I'm going to type a letter L. I want these to be much larger, though. I'll go back to my letter C, and in the text pull-down menu, I'm going to be able to pull down and resize that. I can change the font, I can change the font style, I can change a lot of things. I'm going to make that like a 24 point letter. I'm going to do the same thing for the letter L. Not font style, font size. There we go. And now I'm going to go back to my select tool, and I'm going to lay that L right into the letter C there. Move it up just a little bit. This is a symbol. And that C with the L slashed in the bottom of it is a convention for center line. And the letter P with the letter L likewise on it is a convention for labeling your plaster line or your proscenium line, that baseline that forms the other axis of the origin. I'm going to show you now something that I've been holding off on, and that is grouping elements together. I never want these things to get lost from one another ever again. They're married. So I'm going to Control G, and that groups them as a unit. I can undo that by Control U. I believe that's up in the Modify pull-down tools. It might be in the Edit tools. I haven't used the pull-down for this in quite some time. So there's center line. Just snap it to my center line, and I've got what I need there. All right. I'm going to use my line tool. I'm going to decide on a baseline here. There are a couple of baselines that I could create. But we want to be able to place the set in the world of the theater. So I need to think about this in two different ways. Is my show deck, the downstage edge of that going in thrust, going to be my baseline? Or is it something about the seating? I'm going to choose something about the seating because it's a little bit more permanent. And now I can use this same document to tell the shop where I want my show deck located in the theater as well. So I'm going to pull that line across from corner to corner. I am going to use a different line type. I'm going to use a dashed line that is long dashes. Here we are there. I'm going to double click on that, and it will make my proscenium line, or my plaster line, or my base line in this case, long dashes. Oops, accidentally drew a line. So now I'm going to come over here and do the BL and label that. There we are. Now I want you to notice something about my line weights here. In my continuation of drawing, you'll notice that my attributes box took my line weights back to 0.03, almost invisible when this thing gets printed out. And I need to correct that mistake, and it's a good lesson to show you. If you're in a particular tool and you change the line weight, or any other attribute, it will change it for that particular drawing instance, the rectangle, the line, the letter, whatever it is that you're drawing that one time. But it won't hold on to the information. The only time that you can change working forward the line weight is to, or any of the other attributes, is to go back to your select tool and then change the line weight or the line type or the fill. And then going forward, all of my lines will be 0.18. And now just a couple of more bits to show you, and then this will conclude drawing your ground plan. The dimensioning tools over here in your toolbox or in your toolbar will be important to you. You can do angles, you can do circumference and diameters. You can also do what we mostly use, constrained vertical and horizontal dimensions and angled dimensions. So let's take a look at both of those. The purpose of the ground plan is to set the drawing in the space, not to show anybody how to build it. So you don't need a ton of dimensions, but you do need this origin point that we set down at the bottom of this screen that you see here. And most of the dimensions that you'll take will be from that origin point. And so I'm going to go back to my select button. I'm going to change my color now to blue, and you'll see that my line width is holding up. I'm going to come down to my origin point here at center of the universe, and I'm going to lock onto the center line, pull over to the corner of the show deck, pull down, and for some reason it did revert to green. And I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but here we are back at the same point, and it can be made blue now. Good opportunity for me to demonstrate that you can select that dimension and change it if you choose to, modify it, whatever you like to do. And look at that. There we go. Got those things fixed. And now I'm going to want to show the distance from the baseline to the front edge of the deck. And so I'll use my dimensioning tool. I'll set my line on the baseline, pull up to the corner of the deck, pull over, and it will show me the dimension, the correct dimension there. You don't have to have everything come from the origin point and the baseline. We can count on stage managers and technical directors and so forth to add and subtract. So we can now move from the corner of the show deck upstage to the back of the show deck and plop that dimension in. We can also show where the platform is located to center line.